You wanted to deep dive into the world of Saint Thomas Aquinas. And let me tell you, it's way more than just stained glass windows and sermons. Get ready for some serious family drama, intellectual sparring matches, and mystical visions that would make even the most skeptical among us wonder.
Aquinas' life really encapsulates that tension. Between holding on to tradition and embracing the completely unknown, it's a push and pull between the weight of family expectations and the pursuit of your own path.
All playing out in 13th century Italy. A world of knights, castles, and some pretty intense philosophical debates, apparently. So imagine this, it's 1225, and young Thomas is born into serious wealth and nobility. His parents have big plans for their little guy, envisioning him as a powerful ruler, maybe even a military leader.
Which, back then, was the expectant trajectory for someone of his social standing. It was all about maintaining power, expanding your family's reach and influence.
Right, a total power move. Except Thomas had different ideas. This was a kid who was fascinated by knowledge, the universe, the nature of God, all the big existential questions.
And this fascination led him, at the age of 5, to the Benedictine monastery at Monte Cassino.
5 years old. I think I was still working on mastering the whole tying my shoelaces thing at that age. But Thomas is at a monastery, soaking up knowledge, probably already giving those monks a run for their money in theological debates.
It's this early immersion in monastic life, in those theological discussions, that really lays the groundwork for his journey later on.
But of course, Mom and Dad are less than thrilled. Picture the scene. You're from this tough, aristocratic family, and you announce that instead of ruling a kingdom, you'd rather join a bunch of monks.
It was a direct challenge to their values, to how they saw the family legacy unfolding.
And we're not talking about a polite difference of opinion here. They were not happy. They basically imprisoned him in the family castle. And if that wasn't dramatic enough, they even tried to tempt him back to the right path by sending a woman into his room.
It really highlights just how deeply entrenched those social structures were back then. Breaking free from those expectations was a radical, almost unthinkable act.
Talk about sticking to your convictions. But Thomas, stubborn as ever, refuses to back down. He's devoted to his faith, to his pursuit of knowledge, and neither castle arrest on Severus.
Unexpected guests are going to change that. It speaks to an incredible inner strength and conviction, especially for someone so young.
So we've got Thomas, essentially under house arrest in his own home. You'd think this would break his spirit, but it actually has the opposite effect.
It's almost like that saying, pressure creates diamonds. His time in isolation only strengthens his resolve.
And as soon as he escapes the, let's call it protective custody of his family, for good this time, he doesn't even hesitate. He joins the Dominican order, a group known for their dedication to a life of poverty, preaching, and scholarship.
Which, to be fair, was a huge departure from the life of privilege his family had envisioned for him. Talk about a culture shock.
Imagine having to explain that career change. Hey, Mom and Dad, remember all that land and power you wanted me to inherit?
Yeah.
About that? I'm opting for a life of poverty and prayer instead.
But the Dominicans offered something his family couldn't, an environment of intellectual freedom and support. That allowed Thomas to truly flourish.
This leads him to the University of Paris, which, back then, was basically the intellectual hub of Europe. Think of it as the Silicon Valley of the 13th century, bustling with ideas.
And it's at the University of Paris where he begins to leave his mark, challenging the status quo, really shaking things up in the world of philosophy.
But I'm guessing it wasn't all smooth sailing from the get-go. I doubt they were rolling out the red carpet for him.
Not initially, no. You see, Thomas had this quiet, contemplative personality. He wasn't one to flaunt his intellect, despite his imposing physical presence.
So, naturally, he gets saddled with the nickname the Dumb Ox by his classmates. In retrospect, probably not the most accurate nickname ever awarded.
Right. Little did they know that this dumb ox was about to revolutionize the way people approached faith and reason.
Because here's the backdrop for all of this, right?
Yeah.
Aristotle's ideas are like making a huge comeback.
Huge comeback.
And they're causing quite a stir, especially within the church.
They are. Aristotle championed logic, observation, reason. Essentially, he encouraged people to explore the natural world with their own senses and minds.
Which I'm guessing raised some eyebrows. It's like, wait, if you can explain the universe through logic, where does that leave God?
Precisely.
Yeah.
There was this fear that embracing human reason meant undermining religious faith, that the two were somehow incompatible.
Cue the dramatic music. So you've got this philosophical showdown brewing, with faith and reason seemingly on opposite sides of the ring, and then in steps Thomas Aquinas, like a medieval referee, saying, hold on a minute, folks, what if these two aren't actually fighting each other?
And this This is where Aquinas' genius truly shines through. He proposes this radical idea. Reason and faith aren't enemies, they're actually partners in the pursuit of truth.
Partners, that's a bold claim, especially for that time period.
It was revolutionary. Aquinas argued that human reason, when used correctly, could actually enhance and deepen faith.
So instead of shying away from these big, complicated questions, he tackles them head on right.
Absolutely.
He's using logic, philosophy, all the tools in his arsenal to explore things like the nature of God, the meaning of existence, the complexities of morality, basically the whole human experience.
And this is where his writings, particularly his magnum opus, the Summa Theologica, become so influential.
The Summa Theologica.
Yes.
Right.
He's essentially creating this comprehensive framework for understanding the universe and the human place within it through the lens of both faith, A&D reason.
Let's talk about that for a second. The Summa Theologica, it sounds like a pretty intense read.
It's incredibly ambitious. Aquinas set out to explain everything, and I mean everything, about Christian theology in one comprehensive work.
It's massive.
It is.
Yeah.
He tackles topics like free will, the problem of evil, the purpose of law, concepts that people are still grappling with centuries later.
Wow. It's mind-blowing to think that a 13th century monk was wrestling with questions that are still so relevant today.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that some human dilemmas are truly timeless.
Absolutely. And what makes the Summa so unique is how Aquinas approaches these questions. He doesn't shy away from using logic and reason, even when exploring deeply spiritual concepts.
So how did people react to this? I mean, here's Aquinas, this Dominican friar, rocking the theological boat by basically saying, hey, it's okay to use your brain when thinking about God.
Well, it's important to remember that Aquinas' ideas, while groundbreaking, weren't universally embraced. He faced his fair share of criticism and opposition, even accusations of heresy from some corners of the church.
Which, honestly, isn't that surprising? People tend to get a little uneasy when someone challenges the established way of thinking, even if those challenges come from a place of genuine inquiry.
Exactly. But that's what makes Aquinas such a compelling figure. He wasn't afraid to ask difficult questions, to push the boundaries of what was considered acceptable thought, even if it meant ruffling some feathers along the way.
He was a true intellectual trailblazer. But his story doesn't end there, does it? There's this whole other layer, the mystical vision.
That's right. And it's this experience that adds another layer of complexity to Aquinas' story, raising questions about the limits of human understanding, even for someone as brilliant as he was.
Okay, so we left off with Thomas Aquinas having this really intense mystical vision.
Yeah, a vision so powerful that it fundamentally changed him.
And this is where his story takes kind of an unexpected turn, right?
It does. You see, for Aquinas, this wasn't just some abstract theological concept. This was a lived experience, something that he couldn't ignore or explain away.
So what happened? What did he see?
Well, we don't know the specifics. Aquinas never really described the vision itself.
Which, let's be honest, is kind of a power move in itself. Like, I saw things you wouldn't believe.
Right. But what we do know is that it had a profound impact on him.
So profound that he basically stopped writing.
He stopped working on his magnum opus, the Summa Theologica. Imagine dedicating years of your life to a single work, a work that's meant to be the culmination of all your knowledge and understanding.
And then suddenly...
Just stop.
And not just stop.
But declare it mere straw compared to what you've experienced. That's what Aquinas did.
Mere straw, from the guy who practically wrote the encyclopedia on God. That's a bold statement.
It really makes you think, what could possibly be so earth-shattering, so fundamentally different from anything Aquinas had ever encountered before?
It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It is.
It suggests that there are some things in this universe, some experiences, that even the most brilliant minds can't fully grasp.
And perhaps that's okay.
Maybe it's in those moments of mystery, when we confront the limits of our own understanding, that we truly start to learn.
Maybe that's the point.
So what happens to Aquinas after this? Does he fall into a deep existential crisis?
Well, his health starts to decline. Whether that's related to the vision or just a matter of circumstance, we don't really know for sure.
But even as his health deteriorates, he continues to teach, to preach, to serve others.
He remained dedicated to his faith and his calling until the very end.
Which came in 1274. While on his way to a major church council, Aquinas passes away.
And so ends the extraordinary life of Saint Thomas Aquinas.
A life full of drama, intellectual battles, and mystical visions.
A life that continues to challenge and inspire us centuries later.
It's been quite a journey exploring his world, from those early days in the monastery, to his groundbreaking work at the University of Paris, to that life-altering mystical vision. Aquinas' story is a powerful reminder that the search for truth and understanding is an ongoing process.
And that sometimes The most important lessons are the ones we learn when we're forced to confront the unknown.
So the next time you're grappling with a big question or feeling lost in a sea of uncertainty, remember Saint Thomas Aquinas, the Dominican friar who dared to combine faith and reason, and who ultimately discovered that even mere straw can illuminate the path to wisdom. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.